Hey guys, this is Jonathan and welcome to a C++ tutorial. In this tutorial, we're going to be learning about the if statements. In C++, there are three kinds of loops. Two of them have already been dealt with in this tutorial series. One of them is the while loop, and the other is the do while loop, which is very similar. This one is going to look somewhat different, but it will function more or less the same way. And it tends to be the most common type of loop that we use in programming, even if it looks a little more complicated on the surface. Let me show you what this for loop looks like. This would be a for loop. Let me just put in empty space lines on either side so you can see this. Now what we're going to do is we have this while loop. While x is less than 5, do this and then add 1 to x and then reevaluate and loop through. And then it will just output an empty line. And now we're going to equate or make the equivalent loop in a for format. So what we're going to do is we're going to create this new variable called I. So you'll notice in this for loop, in the brackets here, there are three statements, all separated by a semicolon. And that's very important to do. You can't separate it by a comma or ignore the semicolon. So we have this int I equals 0 command. Then we have I is less than 3. And then we have I equals I plus 1. So the first statement here sets I equal to 0. So it creates this variable I and sets it to the value of 0. And then it evaluates this statement. To make it the same as the while loop, we'll say if I is less than 5, and then it ignores for now this last statement here, and it runs the lines inside the curly brackets. And then what it does is it goes to the last statement and sets I one bigger than itself, and then it reevaluates this condition, and then it runs the lines or the commands inside the curly brackets, and then it executes this last statement. So what is going to happen is we should get about the same output from both. Let's see what happens here. We have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So these are the same loops. And you can see that more or less, let me just change this. Instead of declaring this into I, we're going to call it x. And we don't need to redefine it. The computer already knows that x is an integer. So if we change all these instances of x to an I, we now have what looks very similar. We had to set x equal to 0. This happened in the while loop before the while loop happened. Then we have this evaluation, which is the same as in the while loop. And we have this statement here, which looks identical to this statement. But instead of being inside the loop, we have it in the for loop itself. So we can see what we're changing every time we loop around. And that just makes it a little clearer. Whereas in the while loop, this is just a command that's doing output. This is a command that's affecting how long the while loop will continue. Now, all the commands that affect how the loop will behave are in brackets. And the stuff in the curly brackets, all those statements don't necessarily have to affect the for loop. So it's just another way of creating a loop, and it tends to be the more common method. Hopefully this is fairly straightforward for you guys. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe.